Hello, welcome back to the Try for More YouTube channel where we're doing everything here start to finish in one take, no editing. So you are getting the real raw footage of everything going down. So I am very pumped to bring to you all today a race recap of a race that I actually got to do that was put on by the racing company I have had the privilege of working for the last 3 racing seasons, so 3 summers, and really excited to dive into that with you all because it was a phenomenal race and totally different how I went after it and I attacked it from the mindset piece going into it. I am somebody who always sets goals, and I actually did not set any goals for this race, which was really wild going into it, but also really cool how the entire day panned out. So I'm really excited to dive into that with you all. I will also say the dogs right now, Nautilus, my Shar-Pei, is over on guard duty right now at her diligent post as it is afternoon when I'm recording this, and a lot of people are out walking their dogs at this point in time, so she is on her guard duty, so my apologies if she gets a little rambunctious. We got Benjamin here just snuggling back here nice and clean. I don't think there is anything better than a clean dog feel. Like, it is the most amazing thing. They were angry at me this morning when they got their baths, but it needed to be done, and it is so nice now petting them. All right, so since we do everything here, before I dive into the race recap, since we do everything here start to finish one take, I do need to set a record straight from last week. So I am a nutrition coach, and I get so excited when I am talking about things that are going to help the body perform and recover better, because I know what it's like to not understand what your body needs and to feel that difference from not knowing to now knowing. That when I was talking about omega-3s, I got so stinking excited and forgot to say why they're so critically important. So I want to just take a minute to break this down before I get into race recap to kind of bring that whole explanation a little bit more full circle for you all, since that was a miss on my behalf. So omega-3s are a natural anti-inflammatory for our body, and these are found in a lot of quantity in our fresh cold water fatty fish, and fresh being a key word there, because we want to make sure that these are things that are eating their natural diet versus farm raised. They're eating things that they normally wouldn't eat when they're out in the wild. Whereas our omega-6s, if you've heard of those, are naturally inflammatory. And that's not bad. We do need omega-6s, but we need omega-6s in a correct ratio with omega-3s. And our natural omega diet takes that balance, and it really puts up our omega-6s and brings down our omega-3s, so that ratio is really out of whack, out of proportion. Because I don't know about you all, I'm not eating a ton of freshwater, of cold freshwater fatty fish every single week. Like, I personally do not enjoy cooking salmon. I love tasting salmon. I love cooking it maybe once every 6 months, but I hate my house smelling like it. So it's like I just don't get a ton of omega-3s in my diet. So I know that I'm not putting those things into my body to help reduce that inflammation. So really making sure that I am getting those omega-3s in through a high quality fish oil supplement is how I get those in, to bring that ratio more back to where it is and to allow my body to recover better. So hopefully that kind of explains the omega-3 part of it a little bit better, since I dropped the ball on that a little bit last week. If you still have any questions about this, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to answer that. All right, since I am diving into a race recap, this is going to be a longer episode, because there is just no way you can take a 2.5-hour race and throw it all into like a 10-minute recap. Like, I am a wordy person, and I know this about myself, but there was just a lot of really cool things that happened on this race. So the last race that I did in May was really cool from a time standpoint, and then also how I physically felt going into it, because I had just gone through a really grueling workout. But this race was really cool because from a mindset perspective, like I said, I didn't set any goals going into it, but also I knew so many of the people that were out there racing, because this was a race that were with athletes of races that I've been helping put on for the last 2.5 years now, since we're like halfway through the summer. So I knew a lot of the people that I was racing with, which was so stinking cool and just like energizing as well. And I had no idea how the day was gonna stack up. So I'm excited to break this all down to you because it turned out so amazingly well. So first and foremost, the race that I did is called Triathlon, and it takes place in Southeast Michigan, and one of our lovely state parks. And a lot of the races that we do, actually, the runs are trail runs because we are blessed with these beautiful trails here in Michigan in these state parks. And so that was a twist already going into this race that I knew was going to set my run up with different expectations. Like, had I put a time goal on that, I was going to have different expectations surrounding that run. It's apparently playtime for Nautilus now. She's off guard duty and like chasing toys. And it's really cute. I'm sorry. So the run, I already knew my expectations were gonna have to be adjusted with the trails. I don't do trail running. I only do pavement running around here. And so looking at that point, I was like, you know what? If I do this race, I've got to go in with a different mindset. And then as things were lining up and as things were panning out with my training and how I was feeling, along with hormonally as a female, these are things that, I'm sorry, like we can't dismiss, but hormonally as a female, I knew the odds were stacked against me in order to PR. I'm not saying not possible. I'm just saying that it didn't make sense for me to go into this race, it not being my A race. It was a race that I just decided when I was supposed to be out in New York doing a relay with my uncle and cousin, being the swimmer. And when that didn't pan out, so this race got thrown on, decided to do this race like literally a week before. And with all of these things in play, it was like, okay, I can't go in and have these unrealistic expectations for myself when this isn't the race I have been building up for. I am trained up for an Olympic distance. The distance I did was an Olympic. I was trained up for an Olympic distance triathlon, but it wasn't meant to be anything like groundbreaking, earth-shattering performance. So it's like, okay, so we've got a trail run already for the run that I'm not used to, and out of the 10K, like literally 6.1 miles, I swear, was on the trail. Maybe six miles was on the trail. There might have been 0.2, like crossing trails where we weren't on a trail or a dirt road. And then hormonally, the odds were stacked against me. And then also, I just mentally was feeling like pretty run down, and I just wanted to get out and race and have fun. Like, I enjoy this sport so stinking much that I was like, why not just have a race that wasn't originally on my schedule and just go out and have fun? This was race number 4 for me for this year. And normally in a season, I only do like 3 races between like a half marathon, a triathlon, and like maybe another half marathon or marathon. So it's not like I stack up all these races every year. So this was already race number 4. We, give myself a little bit of grace and go attack it a little bit differently. So lining up, I got to race with my husband. Yes, Triathlon. It is a race around empowering women to come out to racing. So there were like 3 guys racing out of the whole day, and one of them was my husband. He also works for the race company as well for race day sound, but he had originally planned to take it off as well. And just as the cards played, we were like, hey, go ahead and race, because he won't have another opportunity until September, when what is both of our A races is going to happen, and that's a 70.3 half Ironman race. So it was really exciting to get to line up at the start line with him, even though he made sure for the Olympic distance he was the last guy to go in the water, because he wanted to let the girls have, like the ladies, all have their moment. It was still exciting to be on the beach and to get to line up with him, because he hasn't been at any of my races this year. And so from that very moment, I was just like, okay, this is going to be a good day. Like, we both get to be out here. We both get to race, doing something that we really love and getting to do it together, even though I'm still faster than him, and we know this right now. And so it just put me in a really good place. So I went in for the swim. And I wasn't the first person to go in the water, but I was like one of the first people out of the water. And from when I entered the water, I just felt so smooth and so comfortable, which was a complete 180 from where I was a month ago when I swam that triathlon. Like, I entered the water and I felt tense and uptight, but entering the water this time, I felt smooth and was able to find my rhythm really, really early on, which was absolutely outstanding, because it was just like, okay, here's what we do, you know, hand in, catch, pull through, rotate the body, you know, keep it nice and smooth all the way through. Every few strokes, look up, sight the buoys, and it was glorious. There was one woman who we were pretty close in swim time, and she beat me out of the water. So I was the second one exiting the water for this distance, and I get to transition, and she was out enough ahead of me, and our transition was like a really long, like, uphill. I'm pretty sure it's like a quarter mile. Like, I might be exaggerating, but it's not much different than a quarter mile uphill. Like, it is a long uphill. And I saw her in transition because she was already up it by the time I got out of the water, or mostly up it to where she wasn't in my eyesight. And she was like an older woman. And I just remember like going through transition, like looking at that and being like, excuse my language, but the thoughts in my head were, that's badass. Like, that is so cool, because she seemed like she had a pretty smooth swim, like keeping paces together and stuff. And looking at my times afterwards, I'm really pleased with my times. I still want to get them a little bit faster before September, but averaged I think like 130 per 100, and I was really stoked about that. For September, I want to be closer to like 125. But I was like, I just looked at her, and as I'm putting on my stuff, like getting myself all prepared to go out on the bike, I just looked at her and I'm like, she's across the way, like in a different part of transition area, and I'm just like, that's so cool. Like, that's badass. And this is what I love about this sport, is like each of us have our own disciplines that we are going to excel at and we are going to be better at. So I head out on the bike, and I didn't really pay attention as to if she had beat me out of transition or not, because at that point in time, like, I did have to turn my back, get all my shoes and stuff on. So I didn't know if I made it out of transition first. Well, she comes by me at the like 5 mile mark on the bike. So at this point in time, I was first out on the road on the bike, and I had no idea. And she comes by me at like mile 5, and I didn't know until after the race that this was the same woman. And she comes by me, and as she comes zooming by me, I was able to keep up with her for a few miles, and then there was a point in time she just like left me, probably around mile like 8. She was just gone, and I was like, okay, bye. But she comes by me, and I could tell that she was older. And again, my thoughts were like, I was just looking, because I was down in arrows, so down on my arrow bars, and I could see her calves, and like her calves were absolutely stacked. And again, an older woman, I'm just like, that's badass. Like, this is so cool, because like, this is goals. Like, I want to be that healthy, and I want to be that fit when I get into my 50s, my 60s, that I am out there able to put together like performances like this. And I was just like, that is freaking cool. So I was jazzed, and like, I was totally in a racing mindset. Even though I didn't have goals time-wise for this, I was in the racing mindset, and I was like, okay, like, you know where she is, like how little distance can we put between her and I, because I didn't know if she was doing the Olympic, like the full Olympic try, or if she was doing the Olympic aqua bike. And the Olympic aqua bike is a swim and a bike, and then you're done. Same distance as what the Olympic full triathlon was, but just without the run. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if she's in this for the run or not, but like, let's do this. And I have no idea who this woman's name is, so I have no idea if she was in the Olympic aqua bike or the triathlon, other than where the results showed. So after the race was over, it showed that I was first coming out of the swim, and that's what told me that she did the aqua bike over the triathlon. And so she just comes by me, and I was like, okay, Elise, like, stay in the zone, stay in your be in your, like, ride your race, but let's push. Let's see how little of a distance we can put between her and I. And I had no idea where anybody else was at this point in time. So I was like, let's see how we can do in like holding other people off, because biking is by far like my weakest of my 3 disciplines. And so I was like, let's see how much we can hold everybody off for when we get to the run, to give myself the best chance. Like I said, totally in the racing mindset. Even though you can go into a race and not have like time goals, but it doesn't mean you're not gonna race. Like, you're still there to race and still there to put a solid effort forward and to use it as a good training day, nonetheless. So it was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And also, with this being a women's triathlon, as like I was coming back through for the Olympics, started to come into paths with the other athletes, being, whether it be the sprint or the mini sprint, whatever distance they were doing, they had a 10-mile ride versus like the 22.5-mile that the Olympic did. So as I was passing ladies, like just getting to tell them congratulations, keep it up, keep climbing those hills, stay strong, those type of things. The amount of energy that just gives back to you. Like, there was one point on the bike, like I could feel myself tearing up, and like I feel myself doing it now talking about it, because it's just really cool to be in an environment like that and to see so many other women like really pushing themselves to be the absolute best that they can be, like to go after something that they've never done before, because we do have a lot of first timers at this event. So it was really cool to be able to like still push hard and to still be able to talk and encourage other ladies like as I was riding by them as well. So from the bike, I get back into transition and slip out my bike shoes, put on my run shoes, switch all that stuff out. And it was a very humid day, and so my asthma was already flared up a little bit, and I was like, okay, we're not going to play this game, and we're not going to take any chances of trying to see how long I can hold off an asthma attack. So as I was leaving transition, I did take my inhaler, which for what I can remember, that is the earliest I've ever had to take my inhaler in a race. Like, I've had to take it mid-run in a 70.3 before, where, I'm on mile 6 and I can feel the asthma like coming up, especially if I go run over like a bridge with water or something on a humid day, and like that steam coming off the water, like it just hits me. And so, but I've never had to take my inhaler that early in the race. And so leaving transition, I did, and I was like, okay, let's do this. And it was coming out, you go right, like you're in the grass, going down a pretty steep hill. And it was like, okay, just pay attention to the feet. And then as we leave the park to go for the Olympic, to then go hop on a dirt road, we are running on a road. Okay, so it was probably like 5.7 miles were on a dirt road or a paved road, because I forgot about the paved road leaving the park. Excuse me. And so I was leaving the park and I was talking to these ladies, hey, good job, keep it up, keep moving, keep pumping those arms. And I did get towards the end of the park and I was like, man, I'm ready to be done talking to people and like encouraging people. Like, I had that thought, but this was also a goal of mine going into this, was that I really wanted to be able to pour encouragement into other women, because it wasn't my A race. And I see the park exit, and I knew the sprint and the mini sprint all go right. The Olympic goes left, and I was like, there are 4 more women between you and that park exit. Like, you can tell 4 more women, good job. Because at this point in time, I was like having a really hard time breathing. And so I did it. And I was like, I am so stinking happy that I did, because I didn't really see any other people for a hot minute out on the run. Like, I was out there by myself on the run, and leaving the park, I was told by the volunteers there, like, you're the first Olympic out. And I was like, wait, what? And that's when I had an inkling that the other woman was doing like the aqua bike over the full triathlon. Because she would have been in transition well ahead of me by how much like ahead of me on the bike that she got. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. So, however, as I was also leaving the park, I saw a couple really strong athletes like coming in on their bike. And one woman in particular, she just won a marathon like up in northern Michigan, breaking 3 hours for the first time. And when I saw her come into the park and I knew she was doing the Olympic, I was like, oh buddy, Elise, like you're like, you did not give yourself enough space between you and her to be able to hold this off. So let's see how long we can hold her off, because I mean, sub 3 hour marathon, like literal goals. And I don't know her exact age. Granted, I could go look it up now. I don't know her exact age. I just know that she's older, and it's really cool, again, to see somebody who is older than me, who is continuing to press on and still PR. Like, she had never broken 3 hours in a marathon before and just did it, and to still PR, and to be able to like have that and like you know, gain energy from that, because it's like, okay, I know she's coming for me, but like, how long can we hold off? Like, let's play this game. How long can I hold her off? Because I know she's coming for me. She saw me, she called out to me. She's actually the one who, as I was leaving, was like, awesome job, Elise. And then I yelled back at her, you know, something about like, you know, telling her good job too. And so yeah, I definitely had this game going in my head because I knew she was coming for me. And then as I was like on the pavement leaving the park to take a right onto the dirt road, somebody else that I knew was coming in on the bike and called me out, and it just breathed life into me. And it was so stinking cool, because I was like on this gradual, the park is like a gradual incline, and then this next road when you turn out of the park is a gradual incline. And then I had driven the run course the day before, and I knew the hills that I was looking at. It was like a down, and it was an up, and it was a down, and it was an up. And so it breathes life into me. And I was like, okay, I'm not out here alone. Like, we're out here to have a good time. Let's have a good time. And so that's what we did. And this woman that I was talking to about that just broke 3 hours, on the trail, there was a little out and back before you turned, you came back just a little bit to take a turn down the dirt road. And when she saw me, this one's probably going to get me, but like, I'm coming back, she's going out on this out and back, and she saw me, and she straight up did like a beeline to the middle of the road. And I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. So I got over there too. We gave each other high fives, and she was just like, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I just remember it being like one of, not, there's like top 5, because I have a handful of like really cool race experiences, but like one of my top 5 race experiences, because this is somebody that like I genuinely look up to so much, and to be out on that course with her, and then like to be in front of her for a little bit is really stinking cool. Because looking back at how far I've come, 2 years ago, shoot, even a year ago, like that might have not been possible, just because my training has been so consistent, and I've really been pushing for it and paying attention to my nutrition and made this into a lifestyle. So it's like, would that have even been possible a year ago? Like, had I done this race last year? I don't know if it would have been. And so like thinking about those things, it got me a little emotional, and I had to reel it back in, because I was like, Elise, our asthma's already angry. We also can't add tears to this. Like, we can't cry about this as well. So like, get it together. And I did, thankfully. And so she caught me just after the 4 mile mark. So that was probably, I would say, closer to maybe the 2.5 mile mark. I could be wrong. But she caught me around the 4 mile mark. And I expected her to just like say good job and keep running, but she like just run right by me, but she didn't. She caught me, and she actually like ran with me, and we chatted a little bit, and it was just, I don't know, it was just really cool. So when we came off the dirt road, ran on a road to cross over into the trails, and we got onto the trails, and I knew she had experienced trail running, and I told her, I said, I'll see you at the finish line. And she was like, oh, okay, I love this part. And literally, it like looked like a human bunny like bounding off, just like so much joy running through the trails. And I just remember smiling and being like, that's cool. Like, that's what I want to be in 10 years still. And like I said, I don't know her exact age, but I'm like, that's what I want to be in 10 years, is like still chasing this and still having this much fun and still finding joy and like what my body's capable of and the joy of this sport. And and so as I'm going through the trail, which let me tell you, that trail was a little grueling. It was some good ups, some good downs, and a couple spots where I was a little nervous that I was going to lose my footing and die. And by die, like fall and hit my tailbone really hard on a root or something, because that would be completely in character for me. And the trail was definitely hard, but it's like, okay, we only had, less than 2 miles to go at this point in time. And I was like, okay, you can do it. You can do it. And there were a couple other women's from the other races that I did pass as I was finishing up the Olympic, and got to tell them good job, to keep it up. And that was just another really cool moment. And then as I saw the parking lot that goes into one little path and then turns into the finish line, I hit that parking lot and I was like, oh yeah, like this is cool. Like we're finishing this race. We feel good. We're still smiling. There were some hard moments. I did have to walk like 2 hills on the trail because I was honestly worried I was going to lose my footing, and, took a couple steps after I got to the top of those hills and like gave myself a reality check. Like, yes, of course this is hard. Of course this is difficult. All races are. This is where we dig in and we find what we're made of. So how about you actually start running again instead of trying to wimp out? So I did still have a couple of those moments in this race, because it's like the easy route would have just been to walk the rest of it and to not, feel pain. But whenever you're pushing yourself, you're always going to feel pain. And the easy way out, but the not so rewarding way out, is to just walk it out. Like I could have walked it out and still would have been, at the point where like other people would have been telling me I had an amazing performance, but I would have known I didn't give it my all. So I had 2 moments where I like walked those hills, and then it leveled out and I started walking, and I had to give myself a reality check and like, hey, you're right, walking does feel good, but how about you run to the finish, and then once we get to the finish you can walk. Like you'll be done for the day. You're good. And I'm glad that that's all it took to get my head back in the game, to get myself checked back in. Because in reality, when you run this much of a race, and do this much of a race kind of on your own, what is there to pull you out of thoughts that are like, oh man, this hurts. Oh man, this is hard. Like you are your only thing pulling you out of that, because it's not like you have somebody right next to you that's continually pushing you, which is the cool thing about when you go to like the really like the big like Ironman branded events, is that there's just a lot more people. So when you get in those moments, there's a lot, it's a lot easier for me personally to pull myself out of those moments usually, because there are more people around, which means you collectively see more people suffering in a weird, twisted way. So anyway, off that tangent, just to say like it all wasn't, sunshine and roses. And, there were a couple really mentally hard parts still, because I was pushing myself. But I got on that, like I came out of the trail, turned into the parking lot, and knew where I was, and like that it was just like 2 more turns, a little trail, and then a turn into the finish. And it was really cool going into that finish, because there were a bunch of people that I knew there, like a bunch of guys that I knew that were like, they were cheering for me, like, oh yeah, go Elise, go, go, go. And like I go into that finish, and I knew the photographer as well. And he's a fantastic guy, and it's been a pleasure getting to know him. And so like coming in and seeing him at the finish line, it was really cool, and like some of the best like finish line pictures I've ever had, because I was just having fun. It was cool to lay off and not be worried about the time. Like I didn't check my watch at all on the run, so I didn't really care what time I was, and to be able to come around that finish, like that final turn into the finish line, and not care about where my time was really cool. And I was actually able to soak in like a finish line feeling for probably the first time in a really long time. Because even when I did my first Ironman and I didn't have a time expectation, I'm not sure that I didn't sprint that finish. Like I feel like I still pushed the finish, because that's what I'm conditioned to do. Like you finish a race and you always finish strong. And so coming around that and actually making a conscious effort to pull back and to smile and to enjoy just coming to a finish line was really, really cool. And it's something I would encourage people to do. And it's something you hear it talked about, especially when you do a full distance Ironman. Like, don't sprint to the finish. Enjoy your red carpet. Enjoy coming in. Take in the sights and the sounds. And my last Ironman, like my husband and I running to the finish line, we did, but I was in so much pain that I was just like, I just wanted to be done. Like, I wanted to be off my feet because every ounce of my body hurt so bad. And so I don't know if I've ever gotten to like soak it in like that. And so all of this to say, like, it doesn't have to be like, if you go show up to do a race, you don't have to show up to this huge, ginormous race to feel that feeling of accomplishment and pride in your efforts. Like, if you have shown up and you have done the training and you've worked hard for it, like, take the time to enjoy that finish line and to soak it all in, because it is like, it is incredibly cool. And it makes for better finish line pictures if they're doing finish line pictures versus like you looking like you're dying. So I can say that because I have pictures where I look like I'm dying, and now I have pictures where I'm coming to the finish line and like genuinely looking like I'm having a good time, to where things are actually like represented that I truly love this sport and like people could see it. And that was really cool, was getting the feedback from people saying like, you looked like you were having a good time every time I saw you today. And that was like one of the biggest things that came out of this, is it's like, wow, like I was having a good time, and that was communicated to people as well, because I talk about it all the time, but I feel like so often I'm racing and I don't look like I'm having a good time. So there's a time and a place, and that laugh was really weird. There's a time and a place for each of these things to exist, and like they can both exist. It's just that I now know there is a ton of value in setting up a race that doesn't have goals, that is specifically focused on just getting out and having a good day and racing and still putting forth like best foot forward, but without the time constraints. And just like I know there's a purpose to racing with time goals in mind as well, because those time goals are like, because you're trying to achieve something you've probably never achieved before. Like the time goals I have set up for September are goals that I have never done before. Like there's going to be a ton that goes into that. Like, you can't predict wind, there are just things that you can't predict, but so there is value to both of these ideas, and both of them surrounding racing. And with triathlon and even like your 5Ks, your 10Ks, like just getting out there and moving and doing races is something that you can do for your life, as long as like your body can hold up to it. Like, get out there and do it. Don't feel as though you have to have a time goal on everything, but also do the training leading up to it, because just going out and crossing a finish line isn't going to give you the same level of satisfaction as if you cross that finish line and you've put in the honest work for it. Like, you've showed up, you've put in the miles, you've put in the hours, whatever that looks like for training for you to get there. It's going to be a lot more satisfying if you can cross that finish line and look back at like your previous 4 or 6 months and say, man, I've worked really hard to get here. Whereas like if you cross that finish line and you've sold yourself short and you haven't showed up in your training like you should, it's going to be a lot harder to cross that finish line with a sense of pride of doing it. Like, it can still be done. And I've done it. Like, I've crossed the finish line and I've been proud of the work I've done, but not to the level that I crossed this one, because I know how much more I've worked. So when I crossed those finish lines and I was proud at this time, I thought that's all I had to give. But now that like, that level has kept going up, like that scale has kept increasing, I know there's like another level of satisfaction out there. So, and it's something like, this is the best way I can describe it until you do it for yourself. But until you, like, you've got to go out and you've got to do it for yourself to fully understand it. But all I can say at this point in time is trust me, like, show up, do the work, cross that finish line, and be able to look back and say, man, that was really cool. I showed up, I did the work, and I just did something that I'm super proud of. So also, I haven't talked anything about fueling in this, but there's one other thing before I run through fueling really, really quick, because you can't race without talking about fueling, that I want to talk about, because this is another person that has really impacted me in a very positive way, and I didn't know it at the time when him and I started, when I started working with him, because he was in charge of our pacers for like the run events for the last 2 years, not this year, but the last 2 years. And I started working with him, and like we were getting like signs and things squared away for the pacers. And I was talking to him about how this would have been, we're coming up on an October, but like not this past October, the October before that. So 2 Octobers ago, I was talking to him, and I actually just had to think about when my half marathons took place. So yes, 2 Octobers ago, I was talking to him about how I really wanted to break 2 hours in a half marathon for the first time. And I said, I'm going to sign up for a half marathon in the spring next year, and I'm going to break 2 hours. Like, I want to break 2 hours, but I don't know if it's possible. And like, he didn't even know me that well at that time. And he just looked at me and was like, you could do it. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. But like, listen to this about my brother, because one of my younger brothers is like an absolute stud of an athlete. And, you know, that comparison is the thief of joy for sure. And, you know, my brother has put in the work. He has showed up. He was a collegiate runner. Like, he worked so stinking hard. And like, I was bragging about my brother, like saying these type of things about how amazing of an athlete he is. And this gentleman who I was like, I want to break 2 hours to, and he was probably one of the first people I told, like, that this dream that I had, this goal that I had, he just looks at me and was like, wait a second, those are your genes too. Like, why are you selling yourself short when these are your genes as well? Like, you can look at it one way or another, but like, those genes that you're telling me your brother has, like, he's gifted, like, he's talented, he's showing up, he's putting in the work, he's like really making things happen. Like, that is literally like your blood as well. And I just was like kind of dumbfounded, and I was like, whoa, you're right. Like, I had never looked at it like that. I had always looked at it, I guess, in return, in like another way, in terms of like, how do I say this? Because if any of my family sees this, I also don't want to offend anybody, but family, I love you. I'm here to help you and support you in any way that I can, but we're just going to put this out there. Because my family really is great, but like my whole collective, like extended family, if you look at my family as a whole, we are not your picture perfect, fit, athletic, just naturally athletic body types. Okay. It just isn't. Like, we have to work for it. And it seems as though sometimes my brother doesn't have to work for it. So I guess that's like the nicest way that I can put it. And I had always looked at it as the odds being stacked against me when I looked at my family. And this was the first time that I realized that just because what might be the norm for the blood, that like the bloodline or whatever, the blood that I'm like that is in me, I don't know how you want to say this. I had always said like that is what I was destined to be. And this was the first time that I heard that somebody said this, and I was like, you're right. Like, I no longer have to let that dictate my future. Like, if I want something, it is time for me to go chase it. And all that to say, like, this gentleman, like, he knows, I have made a point to tell him how appreciative I am of that statement and his ongoing support, because he's training up for his first full distance Ironman, and I'm super stoked to see how that goes for him too. So it's been really cool to continue to support one another and just cheer each other on. And that's something that's really cool about this community, is we're all just jazzed to see people take something on and like to go chase it. And he was there. He was at like the park exit for the bike out. So as you were leaving bike out, we're starting the bike, I guess. The start of the bike. It's called bike out though. But for the start of the bike. And I was riding, and I was pretty sure it was him. And I heard him say, or I don't know if he said something or if I recognized him first. This part's a little blurry. But I hollered out. I think he said something first, and I heard his voice because he was like, bike this way. And I was like, oh, hi. And like, I called out his name, and I was super stoked. And then he just like literally lit up, and he was like, oh yeah, go Elise, go. And like, it was so cool, because again, this is somebody that I look up to. This is somebody who has made a difference in my life, who literally transformed the way that I thought about myself, and like, emotional, the way that I thought about myself, and the way that I viewed my future, and that like I no longer had to fit into what I thought was supposed to be like my destiny, if you will. And like, to see him get that excited about how I was performing was like, it instantly choked me up. And I was like, no, we can't do this. We're just starting the bike. We have so many more miles to go, so we can't do this. But that was really, really cool. So those were some of like my really big takeaways, just getting to race a race where there were so many people around that I knew was really cool. And you know, one of the benefits, we've been talking about joining a triathlon club for a while now, and it just needs to happen. Like, I need to just go sign up. But that's one of the benefits, is like, if you are looking at getting into this sport, go join a triathlon club, because you are going to know people. So when you show up to these races, you are going to get to see friendly faces and get to see people and get to have that level of encouragement and be out there with friends. And even though all your training might not happen together, when you show up to race day, like, how much more exciting is it to go show up to a race day, to like a 5K or 10K, and go do it with a friend? It's so much more exciting, and you're a lot more motivated to train. So same thing if you join a triathlon, like a tri club, I really encourage you to do that, or like a run club, whatever it is, so that when you show up to these race days, you know more people, because now I can speak on behalf of knowing more people at a race, what it does for you and like what it does for your soul. It's just really cool. All right, so we just went through all the good stuff there, and I didn't even touch on nutrition. So I'm gonna run through this really quick, just because nutrition is a huge part of the day. You've got swim, bike, run, and then your transitions, but also nutrition is critical, because without doing nutrition, you doing an Olympic distance triathlon, there is a high potential of crashing, like in terms of feeling of crashing, not like physically crashing like your bike or something. Well, maybe it depends on how low you get. But like, you physically not being able to put any more out because all of your energy is gone. And this was another race where I feel like I executed on my nutrition very, very well. So I want to break that down real quick, and that'll be the last bit of today. All right, so woke up race morning, and I had cereal and oat milk because I'm lactose intolerant, and that is a terrible thing because I love milk. But had oat milk, and cereal and oat milk, they don't mesh very well. Cereal and almond milk, it doesn't mesh the same as regular milk, just so you know. In case anybody who's not lactose intolerant has ever wondered that, there's your tidbit. Don't ever wish to be lactose intolerant, because regular milk is king. So had it was Special K red berry cereal with some oat milk, and knowing we had an hour drive out to the race site, went ahead, packed a protein bar and an extra applesauce as well in case I needed that. As we were heading out to the race site, with it being a very early morning, I think we left our house about 4:45 is when we left our house, because we wanted to get to race site by 5:45 to help set up. My husband and I did go ahead and set up like race day sound, and then like the swim out race morning. So wanted to get there with enough time to set up our transition area and go ahead and get sound set up and stuff like that. So on the drive out there, I had some pre-workout and I had some water, because I do train with pre-workout. So for energy, that stuff, if you are going to put caffeine in your body on race day, make sure you train with it. So that all went really well. And then I knew it had been a chunk of time since I had my cereal, and so I ate probably around like 4:15, 4:30 that morning. And race started at 7:30. And so I wanted to eat my protein bar at like 6:30 as I was setting up my transition area, 6:45 as I was setting up. And I literally took a bite of it and my stomach was just like, nope, we're not doing that, like gag reflex. And I was like, okay, not doing that, understood. So I had like a bite of that. And then I was like, okay, but we have applesauce. Let's go ahead and put applesauce in. And that's what I did. And then as we were standing on the beach for pre-race meeting, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm afraid I didn't eat enough food. Like I was shaky. And he was like, are you going to be okay? Do you need to run back up and like go grab something to eat? And I was like, nope, let's just hope it's going to be okay. Like I just have to get through a 25-minute swim and then I'll be able to grab something from transition. I think I'll be okay. And he's like, okay, if you think so. And we went in the water and like the nerves just dissipated and I felt fine almost immediately. It was just the jitters I was feeling that I was afraid. It was like a crash of energy. It was actually just my nerves. So that all settled away nicely, thankfully. So did the swim, came out, and I had, I'm actually trying to recall, I should have written this down. I should have already taken my notes and I totally haven't yet. Bad on me. And so I do believe I had another applesauce taking off from the swim onto the bike. And then on the bike, all I had was my carb electrolytes. I use Intraformance by First Form, and I will go ahead and link that in the show notes in case you're looking for a good like inner race fuel. So I had Intraformance, and that is a carb electrolyte mix because I don't like to eat if I don't have to eat. So actually no, is what I did. I did not have an applesauce. I grabbed an extra honey stinger waffle and I stuffed it in my pocket in case I needed extra food. So I did not, at this point in time, I've only had one applesauce. And so then on the bike, I ended up only needing the Intraformance, and I thought I had closer to a whole scoop of that. But when I dumped out my bike bottle after the fact, I had probably closer to half a scoop of it. So finding out that with proper carb loading the days going into it, I actually might not need as much fuel on the bike, but granted, as the distances climb, that's also going to change as well. So that's really good to know that I was able to make it through that ride with about half of the fuel that I thought I was going to need. And then now when I got back from the bike, taking off on the run, I immediately had an applesauce and I was like, yep, this is going in. We're going to make sure that we're good here. And so I had one applesauce there. And then as I'm going off on my run, I remembered that I did crash a little bit. Oh, my husband's coming home. You're gonna hear some things. I was trying to get done before he gave out from the gym, but I did not succeed. All right, so on the on the run, I had like one applesauce taking off on the run, and then mid-run, so it was about mile 3, I pulled out my another applesauce to have a little bit more, and I had half of that. I ran with it for a little bit, and I was like, okay, if you don't want any, no big deal, just put the cap back on. That's what's great, is having the screw caps. And so I put the screw cap on, put it back in my pocket in case I needed more, and that's all I needed. So really, for the fueling part of this, I didn't need a lot, but I did take off on the run with a handheld because I didn't know with the humidity how much water I was gonna need. And I was really glad that I did that. That was probably the best decision of this race that I made, was taking a handheld water on my run with how high the humidity it was. So just something for me to keep in mind going forward, because I think the first aid station was about mile 1.5. Like I could have grabbed water leaving transition, and then about mile 1.5 there was a water station, but by that point in time, I had already taken a couple sips of like my handheld, so I was really glad that I had that as well. So I wasn't fighting the heat, humidity, my asthma, and the need for water as well. So in reality, didn't need a ton fueling wise, because I had been able to like properly carb load, and the day before I had been able to eat, which was a really good thing. And we adjusted some stuff with my carb loading to where 2 days prior, because we know my nerves are a little, can definitely impact how I eat the night before. So 2 days before, I ate even more than like what I would have, so that the 48 hours prior to race, everything balanced out to the correct amount of calories, protein, that type of stuff. It's just that most of that ended up being 2 days before a race instead of the day before the race. So just some really cool things there that came about is, just dialing in my own nutrition a little bit more and realizing that there have definitely been times that I have not been fueling properly, because leading up to the race, I didn't understand how to eat and how to eat properly. Like if I look back at training, even 2 years ago training, the amount of like goos and waffles and just all of that stuff that we were going through was a lot more, because my body wasn't set up correctly going into like long runs and things like that. So I don't know, it's exciting. We'll continue to play with that a little bit more. But for me personally, right now, that's where I am. So it was bowl of cereal race morning, a bite of a protein bar if you really want to get technical, pre-workout, 1 applesauce pre-race, and then during race, like half a scoop of carb electrolytes, and 1.5 applesauces, and that was it. And then obviously water. So that was a wrap on that. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to the race recap. Hopefully there were some takeaways here for you. Primarily that it is still important to, work hard, but also have fun while you're doing it. And if you need to set up a race that is intentionally meant for you to go out and have fun, absolutely do it. It will more than likely pay you back tenfold, so that you are able to walk away from that race still able to find the joy in doing this sport and continuing on. So hopefully you, like I said, hopefully you took something away from here that you are going to be able to apply to your own racing season moving forward through the rest of the year. Get out there and keep trying for more.